Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan Castner. I am an appraiser and the owner of Touchline Appraisals, an appraisal service concerned solely with the valuation of soccer memorabilia. And this week we will be looking at the different markets for soccer memorabilia. Here you can see the different social media platforms that we have on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well. And as I mentioned, we're looking at different markets this week. So we'll be looking at wholesale and retail markets, and we will also be looking at auctions as well. So I'm using the West Germany 1990 World Cup shirt to illustrate a point. I've done a little bit of research, and I've found that this particular shirt is selling between $50 to $75 at the wholesale level, mostly on eBay. This particular shirt is selling at retail level between $200 to $300 at a number of different retail stores that I've looked at. At the auction level, which eBay is an auction seller, but at other auctions I've looked at, and it's selling between wholesale and retail prices. So what does that tell us? It tells us that auction prices, there's a wide range of auction prices, and an auction could either be a wholesaler or a retailer. It really depends on a number of different factors that we're going to get into in the next couple of slides. But the reason that we're looking at markets is because I am an appraiser. So someone will come to me with a problem. They want an item appraised. They might need an item appraised for insurance. An appraiser provides an opinion of value. So for insurance, the insurance company will want to know what is the replacement cost of an item. So for replacement cost, I will be looking at retail prices, the prices at retail shops, and we call that replacement cost. So if an item is damaged, lost, or stolen, and the owner wants to get that item replaced, the insurance company will provide a monetary amount based upon what the replacement cost is, and we base that off of retail prices. If a client or someone comes to me and they want to know what an item will sell for, just if they want to sell it on their own or if it's sell for an auction, I will be looking at auction prices. I will be looking at comparable sales of that particular item and what it's selling for at auction, and I will provide them with a range, and we call that market value. So each market will yield a slightly different result. And for an appraiser, we use those different results in a different manner depending upon what the appraisal is going to be used for. We call that the purpose of the appraisal or the intended use of the appraisal. And we're going to get into that a little bit more in some podcasts coming up in the future. But I just wanted to briefly touch on the markets and how one item can sell for a different amount in a different market. And in many cases, these different amounts are valid. They're valid prices. So when we're looking at auctions, online or physical auctions, traditional on-site, either at a gallery or at an estate, the one thing that we need to keep in mind for both types of auctions is that prices are really determined by the market. The market determines the sale price, not usually the seller. Although we do see minimum bids set up by auction houses, and sometimes these minimum bids, auction houses, they're unable to sell the item for that minimum bid, so they pull the item. One particular item springs to mind, and that's the Jeff Hurst 1966 World Cup final, the match-worn shirt from that match. And I believe Sotheby's had it up. They were trying to sell the item. I think the minimum bid was for £300,000, and they didn't reach it, so they pulled it. So in that respect, the seller has some say, but the market really determines the final sale price. Keep in mind, because of that, there is going to be a wide range of sale prices potentially for soccer memorabilia. We could have a very good item that's pulled out of a box slot at the 11th hour at an estate sale, and it brings $10. That same item at a soccer memorabilia sale or a sports memorabilia auction, could conceivably bring a lot more. So it's important to consider this, and as appraisers, we look at the details surrounding the auction. So we look at what went into the sale. Were there other items that were being sold, similar items? Was it a one-off, so the prices might be a little lower if it's not an appropriate sale? Was it a charity auction? Now that's um, another thing to consider. If it's a charity auction, the prices might be a little high because people, again, the auction house is selling this for charity, and so the buyers are willing to they're willing to spend more money because it's a charity. I think it's safe to assume that most of us are probably familiar with the concept of the wholesale market. A lot of us understand what a wholesale market is. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the concept in this slide. Where do we find the wholesale market for soccer memorabilia? Thrift stores, online auction sellers like eBay, negotiated channels between dealers. In some cases, some rare cases, we see sales from the manufacturer to retailers. Duration could be days, months, or even years. Type of items, we're going to see more common items. We're not going to see rare, match-worn historical shirts. We'll see a lot more replica shirts, possibly match official shirts. The price is usually going to be set, but as I mentioned, you will see some negotiated sales, and the prices will be often influenced by the number of items in a sale. The more items you have, in many cases, the cheaper per item that you'll find. And most of these items will be purchased by retailers or dealers. So at the retail level, we're looking at retail stores, retail shops, and we're looking at brick and mortar physical shops. We're also looking at online sellers. The duration of sale can be days, and since we're dealing with soccer memorabilia and vintage shirts, vintage items, the duration of sale could be up to years because the items don't really, they don't become obsolete. They're still collectible. The price is determined by the seller, not the buyer, and not normally negotiable. And the sale prices don't usually fluctuate too much. The type of items we see a lot of common items, but we do see some rarer match-worn items at retailers. I was at a couple of retail soccer shops a few weeks ago in Manhattan, and I saw some match-worn items that were being sold for about $300. And these items, there was no certificate of authenticity. There was no documentation. I asked the sales associate at these stores if you had anything. They said no. We're just selling it as is. So as a buyer or a dealer, you should be aware of that. Now there are people who don't mind. There are people who go into that store who don't really care, and they say, "Listen, $300 for a shirt. I like it. I don't care. It could be or it might not be, but I'm buying it to wear it. I'm not collecting it to sell it. I don't care. And I'm probably not going to get it appraised." And for those people, that's fine. But if you're a collector, if you're thinking about buying a match-worn shirt, make sure that you get documentation, that you get a COA, that you get some sort of proof, because when it comes time to sell that item, buyers are going to want to see that. And if you want to get an appraisal for that item, an appraiser is going to want to see something, some level of documentation for that being a match-worn item. That will affect, the outcome of the appraisal and the value. So that's something to consider as well. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me today. And the next podcast, we're going to be looking at retail prices more in depth, primarily, and how we deal with retail prices for insurance appraisals. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Take care.